the chair, right?
Diane is the chair.
Okay. Diane,
Yes,
it's
Yes.
Val. I only have an hour. I
Yeah.
forgot about this meeting and I have another meeting at 2, so I'm gonna have to scoot after 2.
okay, that's fine. Thank you for coming. I don't know whether it'll last that long. I don't know how long we have.
Madam
So-
Chair,
Yes,
we are live.
okay. So we ready to begin? Do we know who's here?
Do you see your screen?
I see you on my screen.
You can choose more than one person, but I'll just tell you who's here quickly. Abby's here, Val, and Stephen right now.
And I got Barry Berman, Catherine,
But for board
Fremont,
members,
these people.
for board
Oh,
members,
yeah, those boys. And
okay,
Hillary,
you-
Ray-
but for board members, you have Abby, Val, and Stephen and yourself. So I would go ahead and start, and the others should
What
be
about-
trickling in.
what about Luke?
Oh, and
Harry.
yourself, yes.
Are they here? Okay, so anyway, for the record, I am Diane Coombs, Chair of the Day for the Historic District Commission. And for members, when I call your name, please, when I call you, please answer. So I have got Abby,
Aye.
Val,
Okay.
Stephen Welch,
Here,
and me. So that is, and the staff, I have Kathy
Present.
and Holly.
Present.
All right, and this open meeting of the old district commission has been conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive orders on March 12th, 2020. That order, posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom with video and audio recordings, and we are being broadcast via YouTube on the town's YouTube channel. With no members of the public having asked to speak, this particular meeting will not feature public comment. Materials provided to members for the meeting or provided during the meeting are, unless otherwise noted, available on the town website. During the meeting, I will introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name is called, and let's direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalks and taking of minutes easier. Lastly, the votes will be conducted by roll call. And with all that said, we will move on to the meeting. And we called it to order, and we will approve the agenda, which is very simple. It is a discussion of 29 North Liberty Street as such. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Stephen,
aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Val,
Aye.
and I am also in favor. So we will continue with this meeting has been called to discuss a new proposal by Jeff Kashulik for the buildings on North Liberty Street. I don't know whether we have any, whether he's here, he must be here to make his statement. Jeff, are you here? Kathy, is he here? I thought I saw him.
Yes, but did you provide any public comment before the meeting?
Okay. You will.
Did I do what?
Did you ask for
Yeah,
a
there
public
he is.
comment
Public comment
Yeah,
about what?
I did. I
about anything? I just didn't know if you had offered that before we start.
Oh, I didn't yet because I thought the public comment was going to be about this proposal. So is there anybody here for a public comment outside of what we are discussing today? Not seeing any results, we will continue. So the next person we should be listening to is Jeff Kashulik.
Yes, good
Are
afternoon.
you,
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Diane, two points. Number one, the conversation is North Liberty and total 27 and 29 North Liberty Street. And I just want to make sure so that we can have a, real clear conversation. I just want to make sure that all the members have a copy of the streetscape plan that was the modified streetscape plan that was sent out, earlier this week.
So just for clarification, it was what I sent you in the view pack and it's on the town website. It's been on there since Tuesday and it's also right in front of you at the moment.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, I viewed it.
And also,
okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, let the record reflect that John McLaughlin just joined the meeting at 1:20.
Okay, that is great.
Okay.
Can
So-
Mr. Kashula walk us through the difference?
So this is, today, this plan is the most important plan. It's something that Chair Diane Coombs, several years ago requested, for the overall streetscape. It was a very large topic, in many, many meetings for the last X amount of years, legal proceedings, et cetera. We're not looking for any official vote today. We're just looking to, present a strategy change here, with the big mechanics being that the historic house at number 27 North Liberty Street will remain in its exact location, both sideways and up and down, and of which, we will not be putting any full basement. We will rework the foundation that's in place. A well-respected preservation designer, builder, Penn Austin, has been to the site, and she is not engaged in any further work at this point, but she helped me understand that we can indeed work with this foundation, with the building sitting where it sits. So that's that's obviously a big change. Through many of the meetings, there was probably 90% conversation regarding move the house, and 10% on the design changes, of which even neighbors have never really had any ill feelings towards the design elements of this. In regards to big picture strategy here, the barn garage barn at number 29 North Liberty Street, right in the center. This will become the core of this conversation, in that this is really what I'm looking for feedback from the board and my neighbors, is that we're considering, in lieu of leaving 27 where it sits, to take the barn garage at 29 and create a new building that will be slightly bigger, but like kind to the building that's presently in place. If you go to the very top row right there, and convert it to a secondary dwelling, the secondary dwelling for number 27. Okay. It's been something that's never ever been, considered, thought of, discussed, etc. And this building, as a secondary dwelling, would the thoughts would be to build it new, very similar to, move it slightly closer to the street, slightly closer to the west. And the big reasons for the move to the west is currently, right now, the barn garage at number 29 North Liberty Street sits, as I think many of you may be aware, that the historic building at 27 and the garage barn at 29 are non-conforming, in that they both sit in property setbacks. And where this sits right now, the garage barn at 29 is only 8 feet from the house at number 27, which was one of the big considerations for always moving the building to the right at number 27. So if 27 is going to sit by its side, and secondary dwelling bylaws require 10-foot separation between primary dwelling and secondary dwelling, it's conceivable and and a must that we'd have to move this building to the west, a minimum of 2 feet. So I would like to remind everybody that the garage barn building was built in 1975. No one, HDC members, neighbors, attorneys, no one has ever disputed that, assertion. The building itself, on the inside, looks a lot better than it does on the outside, just because the framing lumber is fairly clean. However, the building is tipped 8 inches the wrong way. It has a terrible foundation, and even if I wasn't, going to look to propose to move this slightly sidewards and slightly forwards, I'd be, looking for the right to remove this building and again build it like kind. So, as you look at the streetscape plan, right in the middle, right in the heart of this plan, you'll notice on the site plan portion of it, the plans that never even made it to you were probably 1.5 times the size of what I'm going to eventually hope to bring to you as a secondary dwelling. And just from a math standpoint, I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but for some simplicity purposes, I'm sure everyone knows there needs to be that the primary and secondary has to have a 20% differential. For argument purposes right now, the historic building at 27, we'll call it 1,000 feet and change. That means the garage barn building at 29, can't be any larger than 800. So the building that you see in the center core on this site plan right here is probably 1,200 to 1,500 feet, on the ground. And that's a a big change, on my behalf, in terms of, making it look, much closer to what, the streetscape that exists today. So, in addition to that, a couple of other key components here, and I know the Concom, is a whole different board. However, by moving the building, more forward, we're literally only, 7 or 8 feet. The existing building that's in foundation disrepair right now is literally only 7 to 8 feet off of the edge of wetland, not any buffer area. And I would think that, moving the building, and even a foot away from the wetland is an improvement, in that regard. So that is, in essence, the big play right here is to potentially leave 27 where it sits, and convert the garage barn at 29 into its secondary dwelling. So when I agreed to purchase this piece of property 7+ years ago, there used to be 3 lots here. The consignment store building to the left of the big tall gambrel was its own property, number 31 North Liberty Street. The gambrel along with the barn garage was number 29 North Liberty Street, and of course number 27, the building that sits where it is today, was 27. So at the end of the day, the end streetscape plan will look very, very similar to what we've got on our proposal right here, whereby we'll have 2 pieces of property, number 27 with a primary dwelling and a secondary dwelling, and number 29 will eventually possess a primary dwelling and a secondary dwelling. The one, final point that I don't want to have, lost in the shuffle right here. And, there's been nothing proposed, sent to you. But if you notice on any one of these plans right here, on the far right-hand side, there's a small little 500 square foot, maybe not even 500 square feet, 400, high 4s, 500, potential little studio to the right of the driveway at number 27 North Liberty Street. That's something that's open for discussion, down the road. By one thing, I'm giving up at number 20, both essentially 27 and 29 North Liberty Street. There will be no full foundations. So, I'm hoping to eventually be able to pick up, a little bit of storage underneath the bottom of that building, that studio building, at number 27. So, with that said, I know there's a lot of talking points right here, but I'd like to, see what I'm really looking before I take any further steps to get, some sort of feedback, hopefully positive, that this change of scenery direction is, well received by the board, and hopefully my friends next door as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. May I ask you a question, just to be sure? On your streetscape along there, it says 31 is to be removed. Is that the old building where he used to have his antique shop?
That's correct.
Okay. And then what is the little building to the left of what used to be his antique shop? There's a little house with 2 cars. Is
That's the Montgomery garage.
okay? All right. That's what I just wanted to catch it all, everybody see. And the barn is what sits back there, that sort of painted the same color as his old property. And thank you. I will find out if there's anybody who wants to speak for this. I know that the Montgomerys had to leave, so I don't believe that they are here. I don't know whether Sarah is here.
Diane,
Yes,
it's Luke. Could I just mention one brief thing?
yeah, sure.
Just to underline some of the things Jeff has said. And that is the studio. A lot of these decisions were based on historic photos and the recognized value of these structures. The studio that we're proposing on the right came to being from observing a small, tiny structure in that exact spot in an old photograph. And so what we're trying to do here is really bring back a much more legitimate historic feeling to the street. And I think Jeff would also probably speak to the sidewalk and the fencing and other things that are characteristic and were found in those old photos that, again, are trying to reinforce the history of the street. The shift of the decision to go to a second dwelling, in my opinion, was a really powerful move historically, because it really does sort of underline and the replication of the mass, which is very, very similar to the existing mass at the end of the day, leaves this pocket between the two historic buildings, number 27 and 29, that isn't just going to be a giant driveway as it is today. It's going to be it's going to feel more like a garden. And I think that's it creates a nice visual corridor, as you move along the traveled way on North Liberty in either direction towards the old houses. So I just wanted to call to the attention that aspect. And then as a general concept as well, with the removal of the Valentino's old place, which is a non-contributing structure architecturally, and then in theory coming up with one that is sympathetic to the street, very much emulating in some respects number 36 across the street in terms of gables forward and just a very even narrower roof from left to right from an impact standpoint. So I just wanted to add those historic comments as just to give you an additional sort of layer of what Jeff's trying to accomplish here.
Right. Well, I remember that little building to the right of 27 in some of the old pictures that show it. That building has been in pictures, definitely. My only concern, and then I want to get to anybody who's here, is that the maple tree remain. Is there anybody else who cares to speak about this? Hillary, are you here?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'd be happy to make some comments from Hillary Hedges' report. I chair the Historical Commission. We've been spending a lot of time thinking about surveying structures on Nantucket. We've just been awarded a grant, as many of you know, from the Massachusetts Historical Commission to come up with a plan to survey all of the structures on the island. And that effort is going to be led by our preservation planner, Holly Bacchus. But one of the things that we think about when we think about surveying structures and understanding the historic streetscape, which is something I know everybody here is concerned about, and it is really the topic of the call, is what are the defining characteristics of the building that make it important. And in these really simple buildings, there's not a lot of, we're not talking about columns and pilasters, we're talking about form, very simple form. So I hope when the commission does get to deliberate these designs, they'll think about this existing form from the 18th century and what makes it unusual or distinctive to our eye today, and consider the changes in that light, with the intention being to keep it as unchanged as possible. That's really what we're trying to do, is keep the oldest buildings, the old town, as unchanged as possible, so that we today can continue to learn from them and experience them. My second comment is just so much of this seems to be up to the planning board. You know, the planning board, I think, is going to have to make decisions about a secondary res dwelling, and a lot of this this reconfiguration. I think we would want to look at information about the barn, which is actually considered a contributing structure in our National Historic Landmark. So I'm sure the board will want to have a discussion about that. So those are my comments. I just think that there's a lot here. I'm not sure what really the board wants to get out of this, but I just wanted to raise those points about contributing features, about periods of significance, and also about the role of the planning board and giving them the space to make their rulings so that you can then respond and not have sort of predetermined a bunch of stuff that may or may not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Is there anybody else not on the board that wishes to speak at this time?
Madam Chair, this is Kathy. Jesse just arrived at 1:38 to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to speak if I might.
Yes, Mr. Berman, you speak.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Berman, and I am the attorney for Barry Berman and Peggy McCarthy, who live at 28 North Liberty Street. The first thing that I'd like to request of the board is that this proceeding be, after we're done today, suspended and then resumed 2 weeks from now, because there are people who I know would like to be present here. The Montgomerys would like to be present. They would like to weigh in. And Sarah Alger, who represents the Montgomerys, the Hoyts, and is also co-counsel with me in representing the Bermans, would like to be here as well. And they unfortunately could not be here, especially given the short notice that we had on this. That having been said, I just do want to point out that both the barn and the Val Matino property are considered contributing structures under the landmark designation that was granted by the Department of the Interior. The Val Matino building, I think, is probably now somewhere between 60 and 70 years old. The barn itself, according to the research that we've done, was built in 1972. So next year it will be 50 years old. But in all events, it has been designated as a contributing structure. And we haven't really had the chance to evaluate what we see here. So I'm not in a position to comment substantively on what we see, although I do initially believe that my clients are concerned about the movement of the barn at all. Not only because in moving the barn, things can happen to the barn which would damage it, but also the fact that it has been set back now from the street for so many years. It has become part of the streetscape in its current location, and moving it forward and moving it to the west as is proposed would be a major change to the streetscape. I also noticed that in the lower right-hand corner of the drawing, it says, please see written text in separate page to supplement this drawing. And then it says, this is just page 1 of 3. It would be beneficial if we could see pages 2 and 3 so that we could understand these drawings a bit better. And those are my initial comments at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Thank you, thank you. Is there anybody else who is not sitting on the board that would like to comment at this time? Okay, so we will have the commissioners speak or ask questions or get their questions on. I would like to start with Val because she has to go to yet another meeting. So that I would start with you, Val. Any questions or ideas or whatever that you have before you have to leave?
Not really. I think that this is a better proposal, given all of the interest and over the historic house at 27. Just to be clear, especially to the man who just spoke, this isn't a formal application. It's simply to ask us if the idea is more palatable than the previous. And just as a commissioner, I would like to say, it's really difficult for us to have to meet separately, have a separate meeting every single time for this application and listen to hours and hours of testimony. I personally would like to see this withdrawn and resubmitted and have to follow the process that the rest of everybody who applies for things do. And it will come up when it comes up, because this is really becoming an arduous task for us.
Alrighty, thank you. Is that it for today?
Yeah, just for now.
Thank you. Abby,
Well, right off the top of my head, I think this is 100% better solution. You're dealing with, yes, houses that and buildings that are on the verge of being old, but are not as old as the 1800 house. So the old Matino light shop being, redesigned in a tasteful manner, I am fine with. And also, they're bringing the barn out, I think Jeffrey said just 1 foot, and moving it to the west, like minimally. I mean, we're talking, I don't see a problem here. I think it's a much better plan, and as it progresses, I would be in favor of it. So that's what I have, Madam Chair.
thank you. Thank you, Abby. Stephen,
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would agree with my fellow commissioners. This is a more palatable proposal in that, to my mind, it's more appropriate. It eliminates questions about the structural raising, replacement of the historic foundation. So taking that off of the review process, I think is helpful in a variety of ways. With respect to 27 North Liberty, I think Hillary's comments are very appropriate, and I'm sure we'll be discussing along the lines of, and what I mean by that is retaining the historic identity of the older portions of the structure, which is most of the structure, and not only individually, but as relate to the context and setting. I think that translates over to 29 to some extent. However, the fact that 29 is being proposed to be moved 1 foot closer to the street, I do not think that changes the historic, the sense of the historic setting or the structure itself, primarily due to the fact that it is not dramatically close to the street or proposed to be moved dramatically close to the street. And of course,
Stephen,
may I finish, Madam
I
Chair?
just wanted to interrupt you. No, I wanted to tell you something. Is that 29, the old house is not being moved at all.
I understood 29, the barn was good,
The
Madam Chair. I understood and
barn
perhaps,
is going to be,
Madam Chair, please. I understood from discussion, and I would ask through you for clarification that may be moved up to 1 foot towards the street. Is that am I incorrect? And if so,
no.
please correct me.
Steve, could I interject?
Yes, please. I'm looking for clarification.
No,
yes,
worries.
Jeff,
No, thank you. The word slightly was mentioned twice, and I mentioned 2 feet to the west And the reason for that was that right now that the garage barn building sits 8 feet off of number 27. In order to be a secondary dwelling, it's got to sit 10 feet off of the building. So I'm
Okay.
looking, and one thing may have escaped there, and it's going to be moved it's going to be slightly bigger and slightly closer to the street. And I don't know the exact footage yet. We'll come back. But I'm not sure if it was Mr. Berman, but let's not, we're talking about removing and building similar like kind, the barn garage at number 29. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
so-
you,
so
Jeff.
the-
I appreciate those clarifications.
Thank
So,
you.
so my comments would stand with the exception for the actual dimensions, noting with respect to 29, noting that the distance that the structure would be moved on either axis is obviously important. However, a smaller amount is obviously more palatable. And the fact that this is not a 1800s or 1910 structure makes the move to me more appropriate, so long as it is not something that will change the context and setting. Lastly, I would just say that obviously, I think this falls implicitly under the prior comments I made, that smaller architectural elements should be, to the extent they are on the historic structure or what is perceived as the historic structure of 29, should not be altered, or if there is something that needs to be altered due to neglect or nothing intended to the applicant, but depreciation of the integrity of the element, that they would be replicated, and that any architectural elements that are not part of the historic structure proper would actually not be made to look like a replication, but would be made to look like something that occurred afterward, which is in of itself historically correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Johnny, are you there?
Madam Chair, I don't see him. I let him in at 1:20 and he's not showing up on the list.
Yeah, Kathy Flynn, could I
All right,
interject?
so
Kathy, could I interject, or Diane, could I interject just one other key point right here before Val leaves, please? I know she's leaving at
yes,
2 o'clock, but HDC members, neighbors, for the record, I mean, I'm not going to apologize, but I am not the one commanding these Friday meetings or these off cue meetings, and I will be happy. I want this to be regular business, okay? I will be happy to withdraw this application and come back with regular business, just like everybody else. I know, Val, I couldn't agree with you more. This is too much, okay? So this was not my choice.
all right, Jeff, thank you very much. We haven't found John, so we have, and Carrie's not here, right? So
Madam Chair, Jesse's here.
Oh, Jesse, all right, Jesse.
Hi.
Hi. Will you give me your opinion or questions or whatever of this application?
Sure, and I just wanted to apologize for my tardiness to the board. The application, I'm not going to have any further comment on it right now. I think I'm going to go with the board and look forward to seeing this come up at a regular schedule.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Does
Um,
Hassab have anything to say?
No, Madam Chair, not at this time, because of course this is just kind of cursory, if you will, before the applicant submits for a full review. But on that note, there's discussion here about 28 North Liberty Street, the barn, the old, the barn that we've all been accustomed to seeing on North Liberty Street. And I'm understanding that we're saying that it's non-contributing and it was built in the 70s. Unless I'm looking at the wrong information, I have an HDC survey on Macris for 29 North Liberty Street, the old antique shop, being circa 1938. So I would like some clarification if that's going to be the proposed second dwelling and reconstructed or what have you. I would request that information for the application. My second point too is the discussion about planning board and this secondary dwelling, the 10-foot separation, 20% differential, yada, yada. Pre-existing structures, if you're going to convert it into one of those from the planning board's perspective, you don't have to move it to meet that requirement. You can ask for a special permit. So I don't understand why that's not being looked into. I'm not too sure on how all the property lines are going to be readjusted. I understand there's 3 different properties at one point. Now we have 2, but I really do think that needs to take into consideration because again, from a historic perspective, we're looking at setting. We got to also remember that our National Historic Landmark District goes up to 1975. That's not inclusive of everything in the 70s. However, the street state setting, is important. So those are some things that I would just like to throw out there on this very preliminary discussion. Also, as has been stated previously, I think it is in multiple records from NPT, that the relationship between this building and the house, both at 27 and 27 and 29 North Liberty Street, were both owned by Seth Ray. And that should be considered through the deliberation. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is that it? Holly, are you finished?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. What I would like to get straight, because I am looking at it wrong, I guess. But if you look at the streetscape that we have, it says number 31 to be removed. That is where the light shop was. The next building to that is number 29, the old historic building that has been there since the day it was born. The barn is also numbered as 29 and is not connected in any way to the antique historic 29. I think there is a difference there. You think you're talking about 129 when in reality it's the other 29. And the next building is 27, which is the little old building that's also been there since it was first built. That is my understanding of the 3 buildings that we are looking at. 29, the barn, is not connected to 29, the historic house. So that being said, and if I'm wrong, I wish somebody would correct me because I have always felt that since being there, being through the barn. I think, to me, I think this is an appropriate streetscape with 31 that's going to be removed and rebuilt in keeping. I think the little barny thing that's over by the 2 maple trees to the right, I have seen that in the old historic pictures of this street known as Little Egypt, and I have no problem with that. I think it is very important that we accept that the 27 will stay on its foundation, will not be moved one way or the other. It will remain as it is. I feel that is what has been said. I think that the old historic 29 will stay where it is, not lifted, lowered, or whatever. I think the barn, as when I walked through it, I spent some time in reviewing these buildings when it started, however many years ago. I think the addition at the back of the barn is where it seems to be cracked and off kilter. The front part of the barn seems to be perfectly fine. The back part, I saw the crack in the floor. I don't know whether that is really bad or it's something that can be cured, because I don't know that much about construction interiorly. So that's a question in my mind. I also know that it's right on the edge of the bank, And I don't, I know this might not be considered inside of HDC purview, but it is part of the streetscape that we are part of, certainly part of, that if it causes any danger to losing, cracking the bank going down into the Gull Island pond area, that concerns me. I think the conception of this is basically much more workable than taking out, moving, and all the rest of the stuff. So I would be willing to continue to look at what's been presented with the questions more definitely answered. And I think that we could come to something that maintains the area, which is very important, being it's one of our oldest historic streets, it's the oldest historic streetscape where everything is there and working. So that is what I think. I don't know. I would like to see it being re-entered, and I think that the reason that it has come, I don't know why a lot of it came to Friday, except the amount of time that it takes. And when we have 100 applications waiting, it's hard. But the applicant has a right to expect a proper amount of time given to it. So it's sometimes you just have ones that take longer. So if we make the motion that it be removed and reapplied for, or what do you want to have, give him some idea of how we stand as a board?
Madam Chair, I would like to, if I
Abby,
may,
you make,
Madam Chair, are you directing motions or?
yes,
Okay, I don't believe that's actually in Robert's rules. I have a comment I'd like to make before we get to a motion. I personally do not believe this needs to be withdrawn and resubmitted procedurally. I don't believe that there's a basis for that. I understand the meeting on Fridays is cumbersome for us all. I agree with that point. I think managing the meeting so that we don't have repetitive testimony will be helpful in the future. And certainly to strike hyperbole as it occurs. The HCC members, I believe, understand their mission and their charge, and to have that repeated to us meeting to meeting on this application is both unnecessary and I think unfortunate. And I don't know if I'm asking, this is actually, we've opened the application. So if that's the case, I would make a motion to hold for additional information, which includes, excuse me, clarification and documentation of the 29 barn versus 29, the historic structure. I think Holly brought that up, and that's an important aspect to it. And then, of course, obviously, complete application to show the site plan that is before us and any additional sheets. And then obviously any other information that's typically required in an application. Thank you.
okay. So Kathy, how is the best way if we want to not make decisions? We're not going to make decisions, but we thank them very much. We've heard everybody there is to heard. And do we just say thank you and forget it, or do we say see you at a regular meeting? What is the
I have a
best
suggestion, Madam Chair.
Robert rule?
Real
Yeah,
quick, through you, Madam Chair, 27 North Liberty was not opened. And I just believe it was just it was a discussion about streetscape. So I think whatever Stephen said holds. There's no application really in front of you. It was just a discussion.
I think that, Madam Chair.
yeah,
if
just
I-
a discussion.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair? It's Abby.
Yeah, I can now. You broke up. Yeah, no.
Oh, okay,
What
I'm
would you
sorry.
like to say, Ab?
I think what we're here for today is to see if we're in favor of this plan, so Jeff can then come forward with new applications for in the proposed areas. So I think it sounded
Right.
like most of us were in favor of this versus the previous application. So I think the thought is that Jeff should move forward with new designs for 31 and what will happen to the barn of 29. I think he's just looking
Right.
for affirmation
Well,
of
okay,
how he should move forward with his project.
right.
I
That's
think
what
he's
I was thinking.
gotta-
I was just thinking of the best way.
I think he has to start to
I
submit
was just,
his proposals.
yeah, it sounds good. I just was looking for the best way to do it to be looked at this another time with these new proposals. So we listened to him, we've heard all the stuff, we've given our ideas. So that should be the end of this meeting then.
I agree.
Does that,
If
alrighty,
that is understood by the applicant, then if he has any questions, I think I would make a move to adjourn the meeting.
all right, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Val,
She may
Val,
have
maybe
left.
she went already.
Madam Chair, she left.
Yeah. All right. And Jesse,
Aye.
Jesse. Aye, all
Yes,
right.
I'm here. Aye.
And Stephen,
Aye, thanks, Madam Chair.
thank you, Jess. And I also say aye. So, and I don't think that John turned up again, so that should be the whole board. Thank you, Jeff, for your time and consideration for this thing. I hope that you've heard some answers to your questions and we can finish it up for you. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. See you soon.
Take care.
All right,
everyone.
so we are all set. Everybody has agreed to an adjournment and thank you for coming today. Okay,
Thank you.